Half a day floss tube.
I'm Little One.
And I'm Lynette here at Homesteading on the Home Front. It is bright and early on Monday, January 13th, 2018. I just woke up, but we've got things to do and people to see and all that good stuff, so it was now or never. There is football on in the background. I hope you can't hear it, but I cannot deny my husband the opportunity to watch live football because it's usually on at ungodly hours here. So anyway, let's get to it and get on with it. We've got some FOs, some FFOs, some whips, and some general cross-stitchy stuff to talk about. So I am going to go first because Rooster is done. The back stitching on him, well, it wasn't even back stitching, it was straight stitching, and it really made a difference. I love how he came out. Can't wait to get him framed up when we get back to the mainland. My other FO, I found at the bottom of my cross-stitching bin as I was in there searching for something. A lot of my cross-stitch stuff that I knew I wouldn't need while we were here in Guam got left in storage, but these were, like I said, they were at the bottom of the bin. I believe that I was stitching these in the late 90s. If you recognize these, I would love to know where to find the chart, because I'm pretty sure that I don't have the chart anymore, because I obviously was working on a fourth and never finished. So I'm kind of excited to FFO these because obviously I didn't know what I was doing back then, which is why they didn't get FFO'd. So yeah, if you recognize them, please let me know what they are. Complete with rusty needle. Thankfully, I always put mine at the edge of the project. And that's it for FOs. We do have some FFOs to show you. Little One's gonna go first.
This one I'm excited about because I made it myself. It's Little House Needleworks number 5 LMN. This is what it's supposed to look like, but I wanted it to make it a flat fold. We didn't have enough of this fabric, so we used some wool here.
She did a good job with that. Mom cut the fabric. She chose it. She walked in and went right to this maroon stuff, which I had just bought at the thrift store. So I wasn't sure that there was going to be enough of it. And sure enough, when I started counting, there wasn't. But basically, what we did is we just used a piece of wool as the inside mount, and it worked out fine. It stands up fine. I did the ends of the rickrack with the what's it called?
Lighter?
The lighter. I was going to say flamethrower, right? Wasn't right. But she glued the rickrack on. She made sure it was all even. She did this one all by herself, with the exception of the cutting and the flaming.
So I can count another one of my goals done.
Yep. One of her goals was to finish something by herself, and she did.
It wasn't exactly the piece I thought it was going to be, but
I would like to encourage you all to give it a try, because you know if Little One can do it by herself, then you can do it by yourself. While she was doing that one, I was simultaneously doing my own, because this was a piece that I had made at Christmas time. I wanted to get it done before Christmas, but it didn't happen. So while she was working on her flat fold, I figured I would make one out of this one. This is the Happy Birthday Lord freebie from Paulette at Plum Street Samplers. You will recognize it if you watch my video on how to get the variegated look with DMC. But again, simple flat fold. I didn't know what fabric I was going to use because I didn't think I had any green that matched. And then I happened to find this fabric in a pile where it shouldn't have been. So that's what we used. And there's our flat fold. And then the last finally finished, is that FFO? Fully finished product or object I made several years ago. I know it was unusual for me. I did not date it. I did sign the back, but I didn't date it. So this was made sometime when we were living in Virginia. The pattern was like torn out of a magazine, and I have no idea what magazine it's out of. It's called Be Kind. The designer is Charlotte Holder.
But it says on the back here, designed by Angela.
No, that's a different design. This is the one. And this is the finished product. This was a thrift store frame. I got really lucky. I didn't have to do any resizing. Originally, I know that we were living in Virginia when I stitched this, because originally this was going to be the Christmas gift that I used for our Beekeepers Guild. We do a Yankee Santa swap or whatever you call it at our Christmas party, and I was going to use this because it was just a quick stitch, and you know, the frame was cheap. I got it at the thrift store, and then I got it done and I liked it too much, so I decided to keep it. So this is an oldie but goodie that I wanted to share with you. Whips.
So my first whip is from Little House Needleworks, the library. But instead of doing it all together, I'm doing it piece by piece. And I started on the mystery one. I've got a good start. I'm not close to being done, but I'm not far from being done. And as you can see from all our notes, we had to convert a little because there was some classic color works in there.
But it's turning out good. You're doing a good job. Mm-hmm. And I started a new project since Rooster was done. Oh, and I forgot to get one to show. All right, talk to the camera. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, since I'm doing it piece by piece, the one I'm doing for February, because mystery is for January, I'm doing the romance because of Valentine's Day. So I thought that was a good fit.
Okay, so I finished the Rooster, and I knew what project I wanted to start next, but I also knew that I had 2 or 3 days until the fabric was delivered. So I got out the other whip that I brought into 2018. I only had 2. The Rooster was 1 and he was done. So the other whip that I brought into 2018 was Miss Baxter's Cottage. Now this is one that is getting a serious facelift, because you know that's how I roll. So I had done the math, and I knew that it was just, this is a very large piece, and I didn't want a very large piece. So when I started stitching it, I decided to get rid of the outer border here. There is an inner border that you can't really see in the picture, and so I knew width-wise that would be perfect to fit in an 11 by 13 frame. So I kept the width, which in my last video, you know, that's the easiest thing to do, is keep the width and adjust the height. And so then I stitched the inner border so that it would be perfect for an 11 by 13 frame. And then my plan was to just fill it in as I had room. So I, of course, started stitching with the house. And the house drove me batty because it is endless stitching of stripes. And it's a big house. And so that's why it got put down. I think I started this in 2016. And I hadn't touched it since. So I decided to give Miss Baxter some love. Originally, my plan with this was to change the date and somehow make this a tribute to one of my ancestors who has an amazing story that I will share with you later. But the long and short of it is I still have not been able to find her maiden name. And I don't want to do anything until I find that information. So that's another reason why this probably did not get worked on. So what I decided to do when I picked this back up was make the house, let me show you. It's a double story here. Essentially what I'm doing to make more room for the chickens down here is I'm making the house a single story. And then that left me room to have the chickens. This might be blasphemous, but poor Miss Baxter is not getting stitched into my sampler because I as a rule, I don't like people in my stitches. So the reason I chose this was for the chickens and bees. So the chickens and bees are going to be front and center. But as I was stitching this and trying to figure out what to do with it, I remembered a quote that I had seen. I had seen part of the quote in another cross-stitch project, and I don't remember what it was. But I liked it so much, I looked up the rest of the quote, and I loved it even more. So I decided that that is what I am going to use on Miss Baxter's cottage. So as you can see, I stopped stitching the house. I went on to the beehive and the flowers, and then I came down and I stitched the quote. And then I'm just going to fill in this area with roosters and flowers for the garden. But I really thought that the quote perfectly matched the house now that the house is going to be single story. May I a small house and large garden have, and a few friends and many books. That's all I need. So the other thing I decided about this one is filling in the house is the perfect thing to do while I'm at my monthly stitchy group. We just met while I was finishing up the rooster, and I determined that trying to count and stitch and talk at the same time is not going to happen. But trying to fill in endless blocks of color that require no counting and no concentration is the perfect thing to do while I'm at stitchy group. So I'm going to bring this one back out next month when we meet, beginning of February, and hopefully get some more started on the house. Once the house is done, then I can put in the ground and the chickens, and that'll be fun, and I'll love stitching on it. But yeah, that's going to be my stitchy project for needlework group. All right, so that's one of my whips. The other whip is the one that I mentioned I was waiting on fabric, and the fabric came, and so I started the skating project. Now this is the same keepsake calendar that the rooster came out of. And so this is the one that I'm working on. I didn't want a brown sky because even at sunset, the sky is not brown or tan. So what I ended up doing was ordering a piece of dwarf. And I was hoping it would be a little more gray than it is, but you know, this will be a daytime piece instead of a nighttime piece. But I've got my start here. There was a lot of back stitching in the house for the stonework, if you can see that. And I decided to backstitch along as I went so that I wouldn't get sick of it. And then I looked at the rest of the pattern and realized, besides the trees, this was basically the only backstitching there was. So I'm loving this one. It's the perfect combination of, you know, lots of color changes, and it is, for all intents and purposes, it's a full coverage piece with the exception of the sky. And like I said in the rooster piece, it's been a long time since I've stitched a piece like this, but the colors they're grouped, so you know I can do these two trees at the same time. I did the house, like I'll do the retaining wall here, and so it's nice groups of colors. It's not a lot of confetti, so it's more like coloring a picture than it is stitching, so I'm having fun with it. Alright, so my goal is to have this one done within the month. It'll probably take me 3 or 4 weeks, but then I can move on to something else. So that's it as far as whips go. You know, I'm usually a one project at a time person, but there are other stitchy things to talk about. You know, in my last video I said I was done making project bags. So you know what that means. I actually worked on making myself a mini bag for Christmas ornaments. This perfectly fits a 5-inch hoop or 6-inch stretcher bars. And this is a new project to me. I've never stitched a Lizzie Kate, so this one is ready to go. I am only going to do Santa's face because I saw a project on Pinterest that basically made his face into an ornament, and then you hang a skeleton key at the bottom. And I found a bunch of skeleton keys while I was going through my aunt's basement this past summer or the summer before. And so what I want to do, I know they came from my great aunt's belongings because they were in with her pile of stuff. And so what I want to do is I want to make ornaments for family members using those skeleton keys. So I figured a small bag to take with me as a go-to car project would be perfect. So that's the plan on that one.
Show it in comparison with the...
Yes, this is the normal size bag. This is the ornament bag. So basically I just chopped off a few inches. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought it would be, you know, just an experiment, and the fact that it perfectly fits the hoop and the stretcher bars that I use for ornaments was just dumb luck. So that's gonna be good for year-round stitching of ornaments. I plan to stitch ornaments all year round. And the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, you know, in my last video I was discussing how to resize projects in order to fit them in standard size frames. And one of the things that is has been really helpful when doing that is having some cross-stitch design software. Now this is version 1.0 of Pattern Maker for Cross Stitch by Hobbyware. The copyright on this manual is 1995. I know that I ordered an update in 2001 for this software. Unfortunately, it's not available anymore. I would like to find a newer cross-stitch program that would allow me to save as PDF. I don't even think a PDF was a thing when this software first came out. But with that being said, it does everything I need it to. It's easy to use. I used it for little one when she wanted to change the initials here and add in the date, and so it took no time at all for me to chart that out for her. I used it when I was charting up the quote for this guy. No, wrong project. I used it when I was charting up the quote for Miss Baxter. I use it a lot, and so I highly recommend, if you are going to be changing up patterns, whether it's for size or design-wise, get yourself a basic cross-stitch design program. I've heard that some people use Excel spreadsheets, which would be fine because you can cut and paste in Excel. But like I said, I personally am on the hunt for a program that's going to allow me to save as a PDF, so that if I made a change, let's just say somebody else wanted the change, then I could just email the file to them rather than having to print it out and mail it. So I don't even know how much they go for anymore. I haven't really started shopping around. I know that when I bought this one originally in the late 80s, it was enough to make me pause and think, do I really, 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 really want this? But if I could go back and thank my late 90s self for biting the bullet and getting it, then I would, because it's really paid for itself as far as allowing me to resize projects and change them to fit into normal size frames. And along those same lines, another tip, if you want to resize your projects or make them fit into standard size frames, is have the frame before you start the project. It's going to be much easier to know how to change a design if you already have the frame. And sometimes you get lucky and the project fits exactly. So whenever I'm at the thrift store and I see odd, non-traditional size frames, then I buy them, because you never know. When husband retires, I'm hoping that he will learn how to cut down frames so that we can resize them ourselves if we need to. But that's in the future. So have your frame first before you start playing around with the design, because it'll be easier to frame it when you're done if you already have the frame than trying to go find the frame once it's done, especially if it's an odd size. If you're looking for an 8x10, then that's another story. All right, I think, is that everything? Gina, I haven't mailed your home for Christmas yet, but it's here. It's all ready to go. I just have to find an envelope to address it, and then I'll pop it out in the mail to you. Is that everything?
I think so.
So you are going to finish Mystery. What are you going to do if you finish Mystery and it's not February yet?
I'm not sure if we've showed it, but my very first start on cross stitch when I was first learning in 2nd grade was an ABC one, but I never finished it because as a 2nd grader I had more important things to do. So,
and a less developed attention span.
So it was left alone. I had part of the border, an ABCD done. So what Mom did was she went online and she found a freebie that had the ABCs on it. So I'll probably work on that.
Yeah, I had originally, when she was learning, I was teaching a group of 5th and 6th graders, and she kind of just tagged along because she was with us. And I had designed, using my software program, I had designed a simple basic sampler to show them how to stitch. And she had started, and that was many computers ago, and so I couldn't find the original file. So I got online and saw that Blackbird Designs has a freebie sampler out, and the alphabet was the same alphabet. So she's just going to use that one and finish it up that way. But yeah, that's a good idea. That'd be a good project to finish up in term.
I'd say that learning in 2nd grade with Mom's main attention on other people helped me a lot, because if I get a knot, I figure it out, and if it's a really big knot, I I can go to her, but
yeah, she knew that if the 5th or 6th graders had questions, then they had my attention first, 'cause she could always ask me at home after the class was over. So she basically got ignored for that whole time period. But sometimes it's good. Baptism by fire, right? All right, I think we are done here. I'm going to get this uploaded, and we are going to go off and enjoy this beautiful 85-degree sunny weather on Guam.
have fun with that snow.
I'm missing the snow. So I will say fair winds and following seas, and we will see you at some point in the next couple of weeks. Bye.
Bye.